Fresh reports confirm Meghan Markle was deliberately frozen out of Pierpaolo Piccioli's Balenciaga couture debut. It comes after last year's late arrival and drama in Paris. Today we dive into the fallout, her previous trip's big costs, and whether luxury brands are quietly distancing themselves. Let's unpack this together. You know how the fashion world and royal news often collide in the most unexpected ways? Well, right now there's a story unfolding that feels like a masterclass in how quickly things can shift in those elite circles. Meghan Markle, who just a year ago was making a surprise appearance at a major Paris Fashion Week show, has reportedly been left off the guest list for the designer's latest couture debut. And the message coming from insiders isn't subtle. It's never again. Let's set the scene properly. Back in October 2025, Pierpaolo Piccioli was stepping into his new role as creative director at Balenciaga after years at Valentino. The fashion press was buzzing about what this change would mean. Balenciaga had been through its own storms in previous years, and Piccioli was seen as someone who could bring a more refined, elegant direction. The first show under his vision drew a star-studded crowd: Anne Hathaway, Lauren Sanchez Bezos, and plenty of others who matter in that world. Meghan's presence that night was billed as a lovely surprise. She had texted Piccioli directly, according to the designer himself. He told outlets that she reached out saying she'd love to come, and he kept it quiet because real surprises in fashion are rare. Her team framed it as long-standing friendship and collaboration, noting she'd worn his designs for years during his Valentino period. Think those elegant caped looks on royal tours that turned heads for all the right reasons. She showed up in a custom all-white ensemble, an oversized silky button-down with wide trousers and a flowing cape, paired with pointed heels. Later that evening, she changed into a second custom black look with an asymmetric cape detail. It looked polished, intentional, very much in keeping with the sophisticated new direction Piccioli was signaling. But here's where the story starts to tilt. Reports later emerged that she arrived just as the lights were going down. In the tightly timed world of fashion shows, that's not nothing. Front row guests are expected to be seated and settled. Arriving at the last possible moment can read as disruptive, even disrespectful to the team that spent months preparing. Some insiders claimed it particularly rubbed people the wrong way, including figures like Anna Wintour, who value punctuality and focus on the clothes above all. There was also that slightly awkward greeting moment caught on video. Two people going in for the European cheek kiss hello and nearly bumping heads. It went viral for all the cringy reasons these things do. Then there was the Instagram story she posted afterward, showing a relaxed moment in a car near the Paris tunnel linked to Princess Diana. For some it felt personal and reflective, for others it landed as tone-deaf, or like it was pulling focus back to her own narrative during someone else's big night.
Fast forward, and the financial details started surfacing months later in books and reporting. The claim was that Balenciaga's team had covered a significant chunk of her trip, private jet from Los Angeles.
Luxury accommodation at a place like the Plaza Athénée, glam team including her longtime makeup artist, and the custom wardrobe pieces. Estimates put the total investment around $250,000. That's real money, even for a major house. The thinking at the time was probably that her presence would generate exactly the kind of global headlines and social media chatter that helps a brand reintroduce itself. Initial coverage was positive. She looked great. She showed up for a designer she clearly admired. But then the secondary stories started rolling. The lateness, the awkward moments, the Instagram post, the questions about whether she had essentially invited herself and then claimed a deeper collaborator role than the designer had described. By the time July 2026 rolled around and Piccioli was presenting his first haute couture collection for Balenciaga, the vibe had clearly changed. Meghan was reportedly in France around that period. She and Harry were heading to the UK for a private family reunion with King Charles at Highgrove, the kids included. Being in the country and still not on the guest list spoke volumes. Insiders told reporters flat out that she wasn't invited. One source put it plainly: "Not after what happened last time. There's no way Pierpaolo would have her back after last year. He wants it to be about the clothes, not her." The phrase "never again" started circulating, and not just as a one-off comment. It started feeling like a broader signal. This is where the story gets interesting for those of us watching from the outside. Is this an isolated decision by one designer protecting his vision? Or is it part of something larger? High fashion is a small, relationship-driven world. Designers, editors, and houses talk. When someone becomes associated with extra drama that pulls attention away from the collection itself, invitations can quietly dry up. We've seen brands in the past decide that certain celebrities, no matter how famous, bring more complication than they're worth on a given night. The goal is usually simple: let the clothes and the models have the spotlight. Meghan's team hasn't made a big public statement about the snub, which is its own kind of statement. She's been focused on building out her lifestyle brand as ever, expanding the product line, the Netflix projects, that whole Montecito to mainstream lane she's carving. In some ways, Front Row Fashion Week invites were always more of a side chapter for her post-royal life than a core one, but the symbolism still matters. Being welcomed into those rooms used to signal a certain kind of cultural relevance and acceptance. Being deliberately left out sends a different message.
Let's talk about the costs for a moment, because they reveal a lot about how these decisions get made. A private jet round trip from California to Paris isn't pocket change.
Add premium hotel nights during Fashion Week when rates spike, a dedicated glam team on the ground, and 2 custom couture looks that the house produced specifically for her. When a brand agrees to underwrite that, they're making a calculated bet that the resulting coverage and social proof will be worth it. In October 2025, the bet seemed to pay off initially. Headlines, photos, excitement about her return to the Paris shows after years away. But the lingering narrative became one of disruption rather than celebration. For a house trying to pivot toward elegance and focus, that math might not look as attractive the second time around. It's also worth noting the broader context of how Meghan has navigated public life since stepping back from royal duties. She's someone who has always been intentional about image and storytelling. The surprise appearance, the custom looks, the social media moment near the tunnel. Those were choices. Whether they landed the way she hoped is up for debate. Some people saw a woman supporting a friend and designer she genuinely admires. Others saw calculated moves that kept her in the headlines during a period when her profile was evolving through brand work rather than official royal appearances.
The fashion industry's reaction, if the reports are accurate, seems to be a collective preference for control over the narrative.
Piccioli reportedly wants his shows to be about the craftsmanship, the models, the vision, not about who arrived late or what viral moments happened in the front row. That's a reasonable professional stance. Couture in particular is about artistry and heritage. When the guest list starts generating more conversation than the clothes, something has gone sideways. Now the question everyone's asking is whether this never again is expanding beyond one designer. Are other luxury houses quietly making similar calculations? We haven't seen a flood of confirmations yet, but in an industry this interconnected, one high-profile exclusion can influence others. Some brands might decide the risk of extra scrutiny isn't worth it right now. Others might still see value in her presence depending on the message they're trying to send. Fashion is fickle that way. It rewards relevance but punishes anything that feels like it might eclipse the product. There's also the human element here. Meghan has spoken openly in the past about the challenges of public life, the scrutiny, the way small moments get magnified. Arriving late to a show might have been a simple logistics issue. Traffic in Paris, a delayed car, any number of normal things. The awkward greeting was just 2 people missing their timing. The Instagram post could have been a private reflection that got interpreted through a harsher lens. But in the world she inhabits, perception often becomes reality faster than anyone can control. And once a narrative takes hold that she's someone who brings complication, it's hard to shake. On the flip side, you could argue that expecting perfection from someone in her position is unrealistic. She's a public figure with a complicated family backdrop, ongoing security concerns, and a busy brand-building schedule. Showing up for a designer she likes, even if the timing wasn't perfect, isn't a crime. The $250,000 investment was a business decision by the brand, not a favor she demanded. And inviting herself via text isn't unusual in celebrity circles. Plenty of people reach out directly to support friends in creative fields. What feels different this time is the deliberate nature of the exclusion. It wasn't a scheduling conflict or an oversight. Multiple sources are framing it as a conscious choice rooted in the previous experience. That carries weight. It suggests that in at least one important corner of high fashion, the door has closed, at least for now. For Meghan, this lands at an interesting moment. She's been leaning into her own ventures, the lifestyle content, the product launches, the storytelling on her terms. Those paths don't necessarily require front-row validation from traditional fashion weeks. In fact, building something independent might be more sustainable long-term than chasing invites that can be withdrawn. Still, being frozen out of rooms you once had access to stings, especially when it becomes public. It invites speculation about whether other opportunities might follow the same pattern. The royal family side of things adds another layer. Around the same time as the couture show, she and Harry were reportedly in France, heading into that private reunion with King Charles. Family dynamics remain complicated. Charles's health journey, the ongoing distance with William and Catherine, the security battles, all of it. Choosing family time over a fashion event might have been the priority anyway. But the fact that she was physically close and still not welcomed sends its own signal about where things stand in the fashion world's eyes. So where does this leave us? It looks like a clear professional boundary being drawn by one designer and possibly echoed by others. Whether it represents a full-scale freeze-out or just a recalibration after one messy experience is still unfolding. High fashion has always been about image control, and brands are increasingly careful about who they associate with when the goal is elevating their own story. For those of us following the bigger picture, it raises familiar questions about relevance, reinvention, and the price of public life. Meghan has shown she can pivot, building a brand, producing content, staying visible on her own terms. This particular snub might be a footnote, or it might be the start of a quieter chapter in her relationship with traditional fashion institutions. Either way, it's a reminder that in these rarefied worlds, invitations can be extended and then withdrawn, and the reasons aren't always spelled out in press releases. What do you make of it? Do you think the late arrival and surrounding drama justified leaving her off the list? Or does this feel like an overreaction by an industry that loves to create and then punish narratives? Are other brands likely to follow Balenciaga's lead, or will some still see value in having her in the room? And how much of this is really about one night in Paris versus the larger challenge of maintaining control over your own story when you're constantly in the spotlight? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I always love reading where you land on these stories. If this kind of deep dive into royal news, celebrity culture, and the intersections between them is your thing, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on so you catch the next one.
We cover a lot of ground here, from family dynamics to public image battles, and I appreciate every one of you who shows up for the conversation. Thanks for spending this time with me today. Until next time, take care.